So what you like, weave or you like natural hair? 9 out of 10 times men are gonna say natural hair. But women think men want weave. Women think men want BBLs and all that. It's like they're not really listening to men, and the only men that they're listening to are men that's on television in these small sectors of these guys that are athletes where, you know, they have the exuberant amounts of money, and they're thinking that those guys' appetite is the appetite of the everyday man, and it's not, and they conflate the two, because I feel like a lot of women are more in tune with mainstream perspective than real men's perspective. And like you said, women are dressing for other women. They're not even thinking about men, but they still want those men to honor them or look at them, but they're not taking into account men's perspective at all.
But to talk on that note as well, not every, you know, you said, oh, like you compared us to lions, like in a horde. And I would say not every single one of those lions wants to be hunted. And so it's hard for you guys to find who wants to be in a relationship. But some of us, you know, if I were to break up with my partner or he was to break up with me tomorrow, I wouldn't be out looking for a new one. That's just not my personality type. Mm-hmm. If you don't add anything to my life, then like substantial, like whether that's joy, laughter, whatever, I don't need you there, and I'm so fulfilled in my life outside of my relationship that I think for me a relationship can only add to it. And so sometimes girls, like, we get our nails done for other girls to compliment. We don't always get our nails done for a guy to compliment. They're not going to notice if you highlighted your hair. They're not going to notice if you got your nails done. Those tiny little things are for the girls, and a lot of women just are not interested.
And we know, and that's why men are acting the way they're acting. Because and another thing I think people don't understand, that this perspective of a lot of men are reflective of a certain age group. I'm 39, so when we speak, because I feel like there's my generation went through a specific experience as far as dealing with the opposite sex, and it gets even more nuanced when it comes to race. And we're dealing with women that are dealing with collateral damage of things that they really didn't have nothing to do with. Men had to go through that too. Like when I was younger, I'm tall, I'm dark skinned, I got a deep voice. So it's easy for me to deal with the collateral damage of people from my neighborhood or people that may look at me. And it's not fair, but it's reality. So women are dealing with collateral damage of previous generations and what they did or how they carried themselves. So a lot of young women were like, well, I didn't do that. They've grown up in a world where feminism has already taken place and control women and men. So a lot of y'all may not have ever done none of these things that we're talking about, because from the conversation, y'all seem like very classy women. Like I appreciate y'all mind, y'all cool. But a lot of y'all dealing with stuff that the older generation did. And the older men are saying we're not dealing with this anymore because we've seen women say one thing and do something else. And even when, like you said, when it comes to hunting, when you said hunting the lions, a lot of times it's not even about trying to get her to be your girlfriend. I've seen situations where women I think men and women don't know how to just be friends anymore. Like every time a man is talking to you, he's not trying to get your number. He's not trying to he just passing the time. Like if I go to a lounge or something, the music is whack, so it's not like nobody's dancing anymore. So I'm gonna talk. I've seen situations where I'll have a nice conversation with a woman, very classy, just real lighthearted. Hey, what you went to? Hey, what you like to eat? Oh, I went there. Just like her friend will come, oh, you don't know him. Why you talking to him? Get away from him. And she'll say, oh, don't worry about her. That type of thing. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you want men to respect you, respect them and stop assuming every man that's talking to you is just trying to get into. You don't know what people are going through. Sometimes a man just to see a pretty woman, just want to have a conversation with her, just to boost his day, and he just go on about it. I know women, y'all went to clubs sometimes, the man just complimented you, gave you a drink, and you never seen him again for the rest of the night. Mm-hmm. Men, we do that. We're not just one track minded. We cool. We like to do stuff for you, but this mentality of women is just so off-putting that I think by the time they really start to talk to men, they're so turned off by not necessarily what they've done, but what their constituents have done.
I completely understand what you're saying. I think from that perspective, though, it's like you can talk to me however, and I'm perfectly okay talking to a man and it not being like a romantic situation or feeling threatened. But sometimes when we see our girls being talked to by a man, we don't know what the conversation is. We don't know what's going on between them. And maybe you get a little heady first because you're concerned for her, because you never know. You know, there is the whole man and the bear argument, and you just never know.
But that's, to me, that's a problem, because to me that's a side effect of the assumed mentality of today, that men are a threat to me.
I would like to add, I don't really think it's assumed, only because, like, as women, that's something, like, I could say probably every woman at this table has been through. So it's not really assumed. It's just, like, we genuinely have been through it ourselves. So it's, like, it's not that we mean to be protective, but, like, it does happen. So, like, we should protect each other, you know?
But it's never what you do, it's how you do it.
But
Like, in other words, if I'm talking to my man, if my man is at the club, right, and he's talking to a woman, and he looks comfortable, he don't seem, I'm not gonna say, hey bro, what are you doing? Get away from her. Like, that's weird. If you see your girl, if she's not being touched, this is a public setting. It's not like we're in someone's house. We're in a public setting, there's security guards, and she's talking to a man, laughing and being pleasurable, you can just come by and say, hey, what y'all talking about? Now, to come with your guns blazing, that's something totally different.
Well, approach definitely matters.
Talking about cock blocking?
I want to say approach definitely matters, but I do think that, like, that's
You
something
should be
I would
interested in your
never,
friend.
I was going to say I would never, if I think something's wrong, I would still say something, and I might not approach them like, what are you doing? Because I also don't know, like, you might be trying to date them. I'm not trying to screw you up either. But I do still feel like a girl should definitely go protect the other girl. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it's how you do it. But the thing is, it's just assumed that something can go wrong.
Yeah.
Because if we're in the club, we sitting, there's space between us, I'm just talking to her, she talking to me, we grown. No one's being hurt. So just to assume that I have to come and save her, it's like I said, it's how you do it. Like the way y'all explained it, that's cool. Hey, I'm just checking on because some women say that, hey, I'm cool, I'm just checking on my friend, making sure she good. I understand, sweetheart. But some women come, who is this? Why are you talking to him? It's like, why you gotta talk like that?
See, I feel like, okay, this is going to sound kind of mean. I feel like when women do that, it's usually because they're jealous of the other girl that they're talking to.
friend,
I don't
yeah.
really think it's necessarily like they're protecting them. They're actually just jealous that their friend has a man.
Absolutely.
So
It's never what you do, it's how you do it. It's all about how you go about it.
like attention. Attention's everything.
Agreed.
Cool donated $200.
Yeah, thank you, Cool. Appreciate
Neat
it.
idea earlier about men curious to the music women listens to. Makes sense when you think of it.
Did that come up earlier?
He brought up
in the
how
video.
music.
Yeah, in the video, I said the music listen to and all that. You want to say something?
Oh, no, I was just kind of going to piggyback off of what she said. Just that, as a woman, we have to take our safety into consideration. So I think it's really important to check on your friend, to check on yourself. But I agree with what you said it's about the tone and how you approach it.
Yeah, because the more classy women, this one thing that women, and it seems like you guys have figured it out. Your femininity and your softness is a strength. It's not a weakness. And I think a lot of times this modern world has made women feel like being soft is a weakness, and they try to replicate actual manly energy and call that feminism. Feminism to me should be something where we stand up for being soft women. To me, that's feminism. But when I hear a lot of women talk and explain feminism, it's like, you just want to be a man. There's nothing feminine about that at all. So the soft approach, there's always weirdos, there's always exception to the rule who takes that as just an advance to just go crazy. But most men will acquiesce to the softness of a woman. And a lot of times if women just keep that approach, that's actually a superpower that they can use a lot more often than they don't. But it seems like you guys have it mastered.
All right. Well, we can come back to that in a little bit. How about this last thing on this sort of this topic? Do you think it's fair, like, if a woman isn't traditional, so kind of related to how she dresses, if she doesn't dress traditional, the guy shouldn't pay for the first date? Is that a fair proposition?
I feel like clothes have nothing to do with that.
Being traditional? So like your ass out, you're wearing a hooker's uniform?
I just feel like a man would pay either way and go about his day and never talk to her again if she was wearing revealing clothes. Like, I'm still going to be a man. I'm still going to pay.
Well,
I just don't want to talk to you
that might
again.
happen. I guess the question is more so should.
Did the man
Should
see
he?
her photos before they went on the date? Because if he did, then if he asked her
And
out,
where did they
pay
meet?
for it.
That's different.
Yeah, you kind of knew what you're getting into.
Well, if I you don't dress like that, and then you show up like that, I might leave. because you're
Yeah,
putting
like
me
don't
in
even sit
harm's
down
way.
and eat. You don't even have to pay now.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, you show up looking like that, I might leave, because women don't realize when you dress like that, you put a man in harm's way, because somebody might catcall, somebody might grab you, and he gonna have to do something. He could lose his life defending you because you want to come outside looking crazy.
true.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not just about controlling you, it's about keeping civilization all right. You know what I'm saying? Women got to stop dressing so crazy. Men are very aggressive, man. Like, you don't, it's like walking around a cave of lions with meat hanging off you. Are you gonna be mad at the lions? Like, that's their nature. Not saying that men are just wild, uncontrollable beasts, but it's like mental health is real today. As you know, people are out of their minds. The littlest thing can take them over the top. Cover yourself up. It's a lot of lonely men, a lot of depressed men. You walking around with just a group of women with your whole body exposed is dangerous. And it's also dangerous for the men in your life, because they got to put their life on the line to protect you from something that was extremely preventable.
I do want to say, I think it's kind of ridiculous to say that that's their nature to be that way, because if you are, you know, I don't want to say normal, if you're a grown-up human being and you don't have any type of mental illness or, you know, something like that, that shouldn't be your nature.
Are you talking about men?
I actually think that's
Hold on.
men's
Men,
nature.
women,
though.
it doesn't matter.
I
Like,
didn't
if
say
someone
abusing
is,
them is the nature. I'm
Yeah.
saying reacting to your
that-
sexuality is the nature,
that-
not being
that's-
crazy.
That's not your nature.
It is a
I
man's
wanna
nature.
say
I
if you
wouldn't
look
say
at
that it's
other
someone's
animals, it's
natural
definitely nature.
instinct to
It's a man's nature to
catcall
react
you.
to a woman's sexuality. Like y'all just said, when I dress provocatively, what happens? More
So,
men subscribe, right?
If I was in a tight dress and I came in here, would you naturally catcall me?
No, I didn't say catcall, but I would look.
But you said that was in their nature.
It is- it
Looking
is.
is way
That's
different
exactly what he's
than
saying, though.
being
That's
catcalled
exactly
or
what you're saying.
touching.
Thank
or,
you. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Catcall, whatever word you want to use, it is in a man's nature to address your sexuality, whether it be extremely or whether it be subtly. It is his nature to respond to your sexual energy.
Because I was gonna say, like, even if you look into, like, not to compare us to like literal animals, but if you look at animals, the men will always go to the woman. Like, it's just in their nature to
Biologically.
Just like
To,
it's in
like,
a
to
woman's
approach
nature.
women,
it's
so-
just like it's in a woman's nature to acquiesce to his prosperity. Am I going to say that a woman is wrong for that? No. If you're out here showing that you got that bread, you can't be mad when women want to see, okay, would you spend some on me? Hey, I would like that, sir. That's women's nature. Women are hypergamous and men are visual creatures. That's just life. And I think the modern time, we so caught up in people's feelings that we disregard science and biology. Some things are just what they are. And you can fight with it all you want, but it's only going to be at your own peril.
You said that you're religious, right?
No, I'm spiritual.
Spiritual. So, my thing to a lot of men who use spirituality or religion as a way to say, well, this is just in our nature, or this is what we're supposed to do. It says in pretty much, because all of the connected religions, so that would be Catholicism, Christianity, Judaism.
I don't mean to
and-
interject, but I said
I-
not science and biology. I didn't say religion.
Okay. Mine is just like a little thought off of
Okay,
that.
go ahead.
All of these connected religions, including, Christianity, Catholicism, Islam, Judaism, it says directly in the text that if a man cannot look away, or if he must react to a woman and how she is dressed, that he should gouge out his eyes.
It also says that women are to dress modestly.
It does.
And that women are to acquiesce
But-
to men and dress modestly as they acquiesce to men.
But is modestly maybe that can be subjective, right? There's no definition
no,
for what
because
modest
there's specific
is.
instructions like covering your head at church, not wearing men's clothing. There's all sorts of different actual, especially in Islam. Islam is very much hyper specific on dress codes, but so is Christianity. And for instance, Orthodox Christianity has roughly 2,000 years of dress code enforcement when it comes to church and how people are supposed to dress, not dress, and what the standard for modesty is. It's set down from an ecclesiastical authority.
But
so
do we have
it's not
photos?
like these things are unclear, right?
Do we have
Go ahead.
photos, or is it just kind of descriptions, though? Like, it is to a certain extent.
No, it's descriptive. Like, yeah, your dress must cover X, and you must have a head covering when you're doing X thing. And yeah, it's very, very, very specific. It's not something which is. I understand what you're saying. You're saying this can be subjective, so this could be up to what does modest mean? My version of modesty, your version of modesty are going to be two different things. That argument would work, I think, in this case, except for the fact that we have such very clear descriptors. So in this case, we just have very clear descriptors inside of these religions what modesty is and what the ethical foundations for that are and why it's done.
But what about translated texts? Because the Bible wasn't written in English.
The
neither
Bible
was
is
the
one of the
Quran.
the Bible is one of the most hyper-specifically translated texts in human history. It's been gone over by every scholar on planet Earth multiple times. We know exactly what it says, why it says it. We know going all the way back to the original Council of Nicaea and before that exactly what the intents were because they wrote them down. We have thousands of religious scholars who all agree on what these texts say. This is not. There isn't any other text on planet Earth which has been more well studied and researched than biblical text. Nothing.
Well, it is well studied and it is researched, but there's still plenty of people who have conflicting opinions about it.
Well, here's the thing. There's a
I'll get
reason
you in
for
just a
this.
sec.
You are correct. There is a reason why there are conflicting opinions, but this comes from the Protestant Reformation. And once you get into personal exegesis, you can make a biblical text say whatever you want, essentially. But if you're talking about an actual standardized Christian church like Orthodoxy or Catholicism, no, these are what you're talking about are called innovations, and they stay away from innovations for a reason. Innovations are against the religious text.
But these men that typically say that they want a modest woman and that they, can't help themselves but assault a woman if she is dressed provocatively.
Well, I think that's a very bad straw man of the position. I don't think anybody said that.
Nobody said that.
Well, I'm not saying he said that, but I'm saying that.
Why would I respond to a position nobody has, though? You see what I'm saying?
Can
And
I
can I
finish my
interject? Oh, go ahead.
Thank
Well,
you.
hang on. Let's finish our exchange real quick. We're almost done.
Okay.
Go.
All I was saying is that if we're talking about those men, it also says in those texts that you shouldn't mix different textiles. It says that there's so many different rules, but we're only following some of them. These
clarifications are made via Pentecost, the New Covenant. There's descriptors for exactly why these rules are in place and not in place. And these have been endlessly gone over 2,000 years of debate within the church, multiple councils which have ruled on them. This is definitely not up for interpretation as to whether or not you can mix cloths. I mean, that's been done away with since since time for God.
Yes, but if we're talking about clothes that should be worn that have been said that that this is how a woman should dress, this is how a man should dress, and all of these different rules that we have, and more religious men are kind of saying, well, I'm not going to treat her well or whatever it is because of how she's dressed, or maybe that's provocative to me. What are they dressed like? How are they living their life by that same religious text? Is it hypocritical, or are they living exactly how it says?
Well, yeah,
that they
I
should
think
live?
that they're not supposed to dress promiscuously either. Men aren't. But when you're talking about male dress codes, I mean, for the most part, to be perfectly honest and frank with you, only in the Western world do you see this phenomenon at all, for the most part. And it has to do a lot with women's liberation. But men very much don't really dress provocatively. I mean, they mostly walk around completely covered head to toe. Most men do this. The men in that room are dressed covered head to toe. All of them, right? I am too, and I'm comfortable in my own basement, and I'm still covered head to toe. And one of the reasons for that is it's a matter of respect, right? So men also show each other respect this way. And also, if you want to see what a respectable man looks like, generally speaking, they're not out with their flip-flops on, looking terrible, this type of thing. That's not something which we respect very much. So ultimately, I think that I think that that's a really not a great point. If you're looking at men and saying, well, what about the standard for men's dress? I just don't see this sea of men dressing provocatively anywhere.
And I want to say this. First of all, I didn't bring up religion to validate me. That's why I said biology and science, because people love to hide behind feelings, theory, and religion, but let's just deal with reality. You know what I'm saying? Because we can get lost in these interpretations, even though, like homie said, it's very clear what religion says, but let's just put that to the side. We have to stop speaking from these privileged positions. because everybody doesn't have the life you have that can insulate you from these weird people. You may have that life where you have a career, where you have a man, where you can do what you want to do and you don't have to deal with the ramifications of what you may or may not wear. But every woman in the world doesn't have that privilege. So there's women that are following the Kim Kardashians and are following this, and they're in poverty, or they're in a neighborhood where it's not protected, or they don't have a man in their life and they think they can just, we heard what she said, and they go outside and get their head knocked off because they just want to prove a point. So I feel like we need to really push responsible messages that are more addressing the average person, because we often talk from these places that everybody's not at. Like when men and women talk about this high value man and all that, the average person in America is making $45,000, $50,000. So to keep talking about these small sectors of people and to try to understand the masses, it's just, not saying you are, but it's just an ignorant perspective, because we get so emotional in these conversations, we feel like we're being attacked, and it's not that. We're trying to create conversations that most people can thrive from. And I think it's just positive to tell most women, protect yourself, because you may not have the father figure, you may not have the income where you can pay for this or pay for that, to insulate yourself from these weird people. So the only thing you really have is yourself and how you carry yourself. And if you do meet somebody who's happen to go against that and do something, you'll be more protected, because they'll be like, hey, why are you doing this to this nice young lady who doesn't bother anybody, who doesn't dress crazy? But if you out here on your own talking crazy and dressing crazy, who's gonna believe you? So I feel like we need to push a message that's more encompassing to the average man and woman.
I will say that as a woman, that you shouldn't go outside necessarily dressed provocatively, especially if it's late at night, or maybe you're in a bad part of town or something like that, right? Because there is a possibility that something could happen. But I will also say that as a man, you shouldn't go out and see a woman and think like, oh, I have the right to catcall her, or oh, I have the right to say something to her, or oh, I have the right to touch her now because she's wearing a short dress.
Absolutely.
I think everybody here agrees with you. So I mean, if somebody commits
I would have to disagree a little bit.
Well, let me, okay. So I mean, if somebody commits a sexual assault, the only person to blame is the person who commits the sexual assault. I don't think victims are to blame for their own sexual assault, but I also do think that if you're putting yourself in a risky situation, then you have put yourself in a risky situation.
Sure, I just don't think it's right to say that's their nature, you know.
What?
I think that the standard is different. So the thing is, like, I agree with you in the context that absolutely men shouldn't engage in any sort of bad behavior like this. However, I think there's a double standard applied. I think that it's very common to see women doing unwanted touching to men constantly, which is not considered SA whatsoever, and it really should be. Like, it's very common to see a man sitting on a couch, for instance, at a party. A random woman goes by, perhaps puts her hands on his shoulders, maybe rubs him a little bit, walks on, or kind of puts her hands on his back and kind of rubs his back, things like this.
Sure, and you would never say that's in her nature.
Hang on. But if we were to switch the roles, right, and a man were to do that to a woman, you'd be like, wait a second, that's totally inappropriate, this type of touching. So I think that until the standards are not adhered to as being equal across the board, I don't see how you could make the claim that men are the ones out here acting inappropriately. It just seems like that when it comes to touching or things like this, women kind of get a pass and men don't.